So here I am 3 years ago, bought this company. Let's go all in with cabinets, all in with commercial, all in with residential. And that was the wrong thing to do. I created a mess and I just poured gas on it all. I enjoy, just my personal preference is working with that general contractor. And that's where I decided to put my energy and focus to grow this company. And then they grew to 100+ million a year just by focusing. That was hard. If you're not able to read the blueprints and understand the schedule, they're going to discredit you. You're just a number to them. The next logical step would be that.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Painting Business Pro podcast. I have a very special guest today. Brian Struble, owner-operator of Shaver Painting and Decorating out of Omaha, Nebraska. You've been the owner of Shaver Painting for 3 years now. Is that right?
That's right, Ben. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just bought it 3 years ago.
Love it. I love it. And Brian's also a new National Painting Group partner of ours. So him and I, full disclosure, are business partners at National Painting Group, which is great because, Brian, you're a business partner, but I really, even before we were business partners, I feel like we're definitely considered you a close friend. Just someone that was always we just have a good time together, man. You're a fun human being to hang out with,
Yeah. And our friendship started 3 years ago, and I intentionally sought you out and got close to you because I respect you tremendously, just as a human being, but also, with the incredible company and culture that you've created.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. You're part of that for sure. That's, I think that's like the value with National Painting Group, not to like plug NPG a bunch, but just talk, just joining forces with people that are trying to build, scale large companies, but do it in a really efficient and smart way and do it while we're having fun and having a good life balance. And, obviously you and me are very committed to that.
Yeah. I mean, so many people have built great businesses, but they've sacrificed their family, their relationships, their health. And that's something that I'm not willing to do.
Right.
Although I've done it unintentionally from time to time, I'm working to not do that consistently.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've all been there. For business owners, we've all been there, but well, let's jump right in. So you're different in many ways, but when it comes to painting, you're different than a lot of the guests I have on. So you are focused primarily on commercial painting, and even more niche than that, new construction commercials. So let's just jump right in. For those listening, we had a lot of members who are doing residential painting that may want to get into commercial painting. We also have a lot of members, and this is kind of a newer thing in the last couple of years. We have members who are in new construction, but are maybe having some struggles, especially with like maybe financial management, who are now getting more into residential, who I'm sure could use your expertise because, I'll just say one thing I know about your business. You've grown your business just in the last 3 years since you took over ownership of Shaver from basically 0% profit margin to now a net 18% profit margin.
Yeah.
And I mean, you probably, but just for me, you don't really hear the number 18% or even sub 10% in the new construction / commercial realm. And so you're doing something that I think other people, I know other people want to hear and want to learn from you from. So,
and to be clear, when we say new construction, we're not talking new residential construction at all. That's a different animal. That's a different model. Nothing that I'm really familiar with, other than I, like so many people, have lost my shirt many years ago doing new residential. There's a way about it, but we're not going to talk about that today.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. So tell us, fundamental and just, for the listeners, commercial painting is such a big word. So how do you separate out, define the realms of commercial painting?
Yeah. So it is a big word. It means a lot. And I want to be clear as to the perspective I'm coming from today. And that's commercial painting as working with a new general contractor. So new ground up work or remodel in the commercial space. So that's where I'm coming from. But yeah, the commercial word has got, it could mean commercial, it could be apartment turns, it could be new residential, it could be small tenant improvements, all the way up into industrial and other types of commercial. But for me personally, where I'm coming from, my avatar for my company is that general contractor, mid-size, that could be a regional GC to a national GC, and even some of the smaller local GCs too as well. So that's my focus, and that's where I'm coming from in our conversation here today. That's where
Right.
my expertise is.
Got it.
Unintentionally, I got here, but I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and yeah, I mean, I personally don't have, I come from, residential painting, and we now do a significant amount of repaint, so multifamily repaint, large scale apartment complexes, things like that. But we don't have much um, experience in the new construction realm. We have some, and we lost our shirt in
Yeah.
doing those jobs. So, how have you found success in the commercial new construction painting industry?
Yeah. So I mean, let me step back just a little further. I've owned this company for 3 years, and when I bought it, they were in all segments. Uh, Everything from residential repaint to cabinets to commercial repaint. So that, I mean, HOAs, apartment exterior repaints, and then working with GCs. So here I am 3 years ago, bought this company with all these segments, and I come in and I just pour gas on it all. Let's go all in with cabinets, all in with commercial, all in with residential. And that was the wrong thing to do. I created a mess. And then about a year and a half ago, I said, okay, I got to focus here. And so through your coaching and Eric's coaching and others around me with common sense, I just focused in on commercial. One thing that we were really, really damn good at. And then that led me into, there's really two ways to market commercial. So you have what you're doing, and we do it too as well. We just don't do it as well as you do, which is the commercial repaint. We don't market that well, but because we're going on 50 years in business next year, we're known we're known in Omaha, we're known in Nebraska, we're known in the region, so we get a lot of that work organically. Where I enjoy, just my personal preference, is working with that general contractor. And that's where I decided to put my energy and focus for now to grow this company.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at today.
Yeah, I love that. So, just for everyone listening, the power of focus is so critical. Really, no matter what year you are in business or how large or small your business is, we've made that mistake so many times too, Brian, where we've just spread our attention and focus to so many things. And so we didn't do anything very well. We did a lot of things very below average. And it bit us in the butt. And so, we got really dialed into residential interior, exterior painting, right? No carpentry, no drywall, just that. We got really good at that. And now we're scaling, our businesses to do that. Now, though, like 10 years later, we're now focusing heavily on commercial repaint. But to be clear, we're not doing what you're doing. We're not going after new construction yet. We're going to stay really focused on commercial repaint until we've built that model really well. Then we'll get into, commercial. So just the power of what you just said of like focusing your attention. You've got 8 different things that Schaefer was doing, focusing all your attention on this one, which is working with GCs in new commercial painting.
Yeah, I was reminded again the other day about the power of focus. There's a guy named Alec, and he is the CEO of Gray Days Painting out of Atlanta. He was on a podcast recently talking about his company, and he's not the founder, but he is the CEO that was put in place a few years ago. Young guy, and it's one of, I want to say they're landing right now as the 5th largest painting company in the country, and I think they're hitting about 110 million a year in revenue. And so one thing I noticed that he said, and I took away from that podcast interview he did, was that they were a house painter to begin with, and then they went into commercial, and then they grew as a commercial painting company, probably hitting about 15, 20 million a year. They had an industrial division, a flooring division, all these verticals that made them a powerhouse in commercial. But they wanted to grow. So the way they did it is they did that with connecting with general contractors who specialized in warehouses. So they did that. They closed down their industrial division. They closed down their flooring division, their epoxy flooring division, and they quit doing all this other stuff in commercial and focused on warehouses. And then they grew to 100 plus million a year just by focusing, you know?
Wow.
So it reminds me when I said, okay, no more residential, that was hard. Now, mind you, I was only doing 300,000-400,000 a year in residential. So it wasn't a huge piece, but nobody wants to let go of money. That's money. Why would you stop doing that? And it's good money. But I want to point out the fact that the power of focus. So that's one thing, is how you scale, by focusing and getting really damn good at one thing. But you can add those verticals and those layers, like what you're doing, adding that commercial piece to it. It's not distracting or detracting from what you initially focused on. And my intention is to get really good working with the GCs here in Omaha, Nebraska, and then copy and paste that into Des Moines and Kansas City, Sioux City, Iowa, wherever we go next from here. Nice. Tampa, Florida, so I could be on the beach. Who knows? Who knows where we go?
Yeah, I'll join you. Yeah, and to be clear for everybody, we only moved away from residential interior and exterior. I mean, it was a lot of years in the making. I mean, I think it was probably 7 or 8 years. Now, it doesn't need to take you necessarily that long, but just focusing on one thing, getting really good at it. And to be clear, now that we're doing commercial repaint, we have a different team going about that. There's some people who are supporting both sides of our business, residential, commercial, but we've hired a single business development rep, and all she does is relationship building. We have a PM that's mainly focused on commercial production, and so it's focused where I'm not the one doing all the work anymore. Like, my attention is just building the team. We have other people focused on, okay, your one thing to focus on here is now building relationships with property managers, with real estate agents. And so again, just focus you can add to the focus with once you've got something really built, cool, you can add something else, but don't be the one that's doing it. Because if you lose focus on the thing that's really working, it will fall down if you don't have the right people in place to run it.
Yeah. And that's true. I like how you brought up the team aspect. And I saw that early on here at Shaver a few years back. Here's a guy, an estimator, going to estimate a kitchen cabinet, and then a warehouse, and then an HOA. It just threw him off his game, going back and forth like that. Different relationships, different way to win the job. When you have those team members like yours and mine who are single focused, they have the freedom to get really good at what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
exactly. That's
yeah.
Good. Yeah. Well, awesome. So getting into new construction. So, where would someone even start? I mean, how did you first create relationships with these so you have a couple general contractors you work with?
Yeah.
A couple.
Yeah. I have a few that I'm in good relationship with, and to be transparent, I bought a company that, again, has been around for going on 50 years next year. So, I can call a general contractor and say, hey, I'm Brian at Shaver Painting. Oh yeah, we did a project with you 15 years ago out in wherever, Nebraska. Yeah. Or my favorite the other day was, yeah, my brother worked for you about 20 years ago. And there's stories like that everywhere.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot. So I want to be transparent to the fact that that helps me get into this GC space. But
Yeah.
if I was to start, if I had a residential company that was running solid, maybe even as small as one rep, 1 PM, and an office manager, and I say to myself, okay, I want to go after commercial. First, I go after commercial repaint. But then as you grow into that and you develop that, you want to go into GC work. Getting the relationship is easy. You could cold call a GC. You could take one of the bid invites and bid those and see where that takes you. GCs are always looking for great subs because although there's a ton of competition, there's really nobody worth competing with. I mean, you know what I'm saying, Ben.
Oh, yeah.
There's painters on every corner.
Right.
But you can compete with them all day long and crush it.
Right.
I mean, let's just keep it in perspective,
That's great.
Yeah, if you're just willing to engage and get in front of that GC, and we can go into depth further, and I think really to sum it up is it's all about messaging, being able to communicate who you are to that GC and build that relationship with them, and start small. Get a small GC that does small tenant improvements.
Yeah.
Maybe he builds the McDonald's or whatever dentist office in a strip mall or whatever. That's a great way to start.
Okay. That's a good way. And that's just because it's easier because you're probably working with the actual owner. I would assume.
Right.
Maybe close to the owner. So
yeah, the owner of the GC company would be involved, and that's just easier to build a relationship with, and then start to learn what's important to that GC.
Yeah.
And be able to provide that. It's different than the homeowner.
Sure.
And
do you just walk in? I mean, you just walk into offices and introduce yourself? Phone call?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
All the above?
Yeah, just cool. I've done that before. One GC is Prairie Construction. I walked in maybe a year and a half ago. And again, they knew who I was. They knew who Shaver was. So that helped. And then I just communicated to him, hey, I'm in the commercial game. And then now here I am a year later getting ready to start 2 brand new elementary schools with them. And that's just cool. It's cool to be a part of those big projects in the community.
Well, how did you, I mean, I know the Shaver name obviously helps, but you're the one who walked in and still earned the business. So if I'm just walking in with not the Shaver name, I mean, what do you say? Is there like a script you use? I mean, how do you actually get in with these guys and gals?
Yeah, no, I mean, just realize it's not an emotional purchase. It's a GC wants to reduce their hassle and reduce their risk. That's really it. Those 2 things. When you understand that and you're able to do that for a GC, you're not selling on price at that point. The GC has 10 subs they're working with on a project, maybe more on an elementary school, for instance. They don't need to be bogged down because the painter can't get their act together, or they're working in an unsafe, unclean manner, or not sticking to the schedule. So just being able to communicate that you understand what's important to the GC, and it's not price. Price is important. So you estimate properly. You have a system to estimate with blueprints, and that takes time. It took, I think, 3 days to estimate 1 school, 3 solid days. So you have to be able to give the time to estimate properly, to give the right number, and then be able to offer the crews that could work in a safe manner. Like I was saying, OSHA 10 or OSHA 30 certified. And then being able to be on schedule and communicate through the process. That's a lot of work, beyond just the painting.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that that's what the GC needs. They need somebody to be at the weekly sub meeting, to communicate schedule, to understand the scope. That's the other piece. You can't walk into a project with a GC and ask them, hey, how tall are these ceilings? Is it 17 or 18 feet? No, the GC wants you to know your scope of work. what you're painting, where you're painting it. If you're not able to read the blueprints and understand the schedule, then they're going to discredit you and move on.
Yeah. Rightfully so. They're like, I can't deal with,
Yeah.
10 different contractors asking me what they're doing today. Well, the first, reducing, I think that was so good what you said. Reducing the hassle, reducing the risk for the GC is how you don't compete on price. I mean, well, first of all, it's how you get
Exactly.
hired. It's how you get hired, and then it's where you not. Because I think that's what a lot of people, the misconceived perception with new construction is that there's no margin. Like you can't make
Yeah.
money new construction. You're proving the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah. And let me tell one story about price, because this happened.
Yeah.
Um, it was just a test that I did, something maybe even considered stupid that I did. But there was a project with a particular GC here in town. I wanted to get in with them. We bid a bunch of stuff. We didn't get callbacks. We didn't get much communication at all. And I rushed through a bid, and I bid it probably, let's say I think it was like, it should have been bid about 10 or 11,000. And I bid it at $5,000. Fortunately, I was able to produce it it was a McDonald's. So there's not much painting there. We went in and we produced it for $5,000, but we did so well. The project manager says, listen, you're with me. You're riding this horse. You're not getting off. We have 5 more McDonald's. We ended up raising our price close to 20. So we're hitting 60% gross profit on each one. And they're quick, small hitting jobs, but they're easy. And now we know what we're doing because it's cookie cutter. And like I said, we got 4, maybe 5 of those McDonald's out of that. So I tell that story to say this: sometimes, if you do it intentionally, drop your price, get the attention of the GC, go in and wow them on a project, and they'll request you moving forward.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. Made a
Yeah.
mistake that turned into, what's really important thing to underline there? We made the mistake before where we find out we underbid a job severely. Um, and then we try to like justify it to our painters, like to our subcontractors. And we try to not, this was way back in the past, like not always take care of them the way they should be taken care of. So then
Right.
they cut corners, they're stressed out, they're not doing good work. And then the GC or property manager says, okay, you're the last job you'll ever do for me. And so we burn a bridge
Yep.
by not taking care of our contractors. And you just said, producing it, sold it for 5,000, produced it at 5,000. So actually lost money overall
Yeah.
after you take in operational expenses. But but you did right by your painters, and guess what? It turned into a real awesome, a real
Yeah.
consistent relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really honestly had no choice to do right by my painting crews, because I'm a hybrid where I have W-2, and we dip into the sub market as well.
Mm,
So my guys, the smaller jobs, we do really well with the W-2 painters. Maybe let's say 30,000 and below. Our W-2 painters do really well. It's getting into the bigger jobs where the W-2s don't do so hot,
yeah,
and we dip into the sub market at that point.
yeah,
But to your point, yeah, I mean, regardless if you're doing residential, commercial, take care of your subs.
I know.
You
Yeah,
you take it in the shorts if you screwed up and bid it wrong. Don't try to save yourself on their back.
right. And for those listening, there's a difference between what we're talking about. So there is negotiation, and there is not being taken advantage of, by a sub who's maybe trying to get more than what the job should
Right.
pay for. So we're not saying pay them whatever they ask for, but what we are saying, and I find this more in commercial than residential, is if you made a mistake on a bid, you've got to own that. You've got to own it,
Hmm.
and you've got to take care of them, because you never know what bridge you're burning if you decide to stress your painters out and they do an average job, and that GC, property manager, roofer, whatever, homeowner, whatever, decides never to work with you again. you know
Right.
so yes, take care of your subs, take care of your subs,
Yeah,
and your painters
absolutely,
if you
every
have
time.
yeah.
and develop them too. Developing subs is,
Yeah.
there's a time to churn through some subs and to find the right fit. But then there's a time to say, okay, this is a good fit, but they're not producing well. They're not making money. One thing that we've started to do this year, we've done it a couple of times, is we'll take one of our W-2 experienced painters and put that painter out with the sub crew for a day. And we communicate, hey, listen, he's here to help you, support you. And if they're humble enough to learn, my W-2 painter will develop our sub crews to work more efficiently, to work smarter. And that's helped us a lot here in the last few months
Nice.
in
That's
kind of a
great.
unique way. And I think the takeaway there would just be develop your subs,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
Well, and on that vein, is that so? One of my main questions for you is how 18% net profit, like I said earlier, it's pretty rare in the new construct, pretty rare in any,
Any
business,
trade.
any trade, yeah, and
Yeah.
any painting, in any painting avenue. So how how do you do that? How can a new painting company actually make, 18% net profit on new construction?
Yeah. I told you the first year or two, we were not profitable um, at all. And one of the reasons was my my office space, my shop space was out of whack. I had 8,000 square feet. I didn't need that much, so we downsized to 3. That helped a lot.
Yeah.
And then it's really the overhead piece was what I focused on next. We I had a pretty heavy overhead in the first years that ate my lunch. And so let me say this, for in the commercial space, a commercial sales rep could easily do 2 million plus. A production manager could easily do 2 million plus. In Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but in the residential space, a good, not an A player, but a really a decent estimator and a decent PM, they do what? A million and a half
Yeah, exactly. One to
each.
1.5. Yep, I'd say 1 to 1.5.
Yeah, yeah. So we can do, because there's a lot less moving parts in commercial. You set up a crew to do exposed decking, and you're just going to let them cruise on that for 2 weeks,
Mm,
or whatever the project is, and there's not a whole lot of involvement from the PM standpoint, where
okay.
you could reduce your costs that way. And I bet if we started pushing, we could probably do 2.5, 3 million per rep. Probably could do 2.5 million produced with a PM, but
Mm,
that's going to take us time to get there.
sure. Yeah.
But there's work to do there.
And so going back to the profit side of things, so how did you reduce overhead? You said from an operational expense standpoint. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, it was all operational for us. And then the other thing is, it's again, I have this W-2 cruise and I have the sub cruise. The sub is it's easy to manage because you're negotiating the price ahead of time. You're giving that sub crew that price, and then there's not a whole lot of variables, so you can produce profitably. It's that W-2. So what we've done there is just simply giving the W-2 a budget. We pay them really well. They're anywhere from 22 to 32 per hour. Experienced painters. They've been with me for a while, so I take really good care of them with the benefits and the vacation, PTO, and all that. And the company vans and all these other, they always have the equipment and the uniforms that they need to perform well. I invest in them with the OSHA certifications and everything they need to be really well, to do really well in their job. And that's how I take care of the labor. And then the overhead side, it's just creating a good culture, being a great place to work. um it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Not that hard. Be good people,
Yeah.
you
I think
know.
that's the balance with culture to strike is between holding people accountable to high performance, but also still having love and humanity is like the
Yeah,
bedrock of what you're doing. It
yeah,
seems to be either or it's hard. It's like you're either a pushover and you love people and you don't really call people out for low performance, or you're strict and you're like high performance only. And I think you strike a good balance, and I've really practiced. I'm very much in the practice of that balance between,
Yeah.
coming from love and appreciation and respect, and at the same time holding people accountable to and challenging people to be their best selves and perform at a high level.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I'm practicing now too, is learning how to not step over things, how to have those conversations, and and holding myself accountable to that high level, and then others around me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
I let
yeah,
myself slip, and then I'm like, okay, well, I can't hold him accountable because I
yeah,
goofed off too, and whatever.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah.
It is a balancing act for sure.
One thing to tie a bow on the profit conversation, I think, just not to bury the lead, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but accurate estimating, accurate blueprint reading is where people can really lose their shorts or make a lot of money with this work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And GCs notice when you don't know how to estimate. So
Okay.
understanding the scope from the very beginning. So when you're writing up the estimate, and we do it in a Word doc, we're bullet pointing every aspect of that job. So we're saying, the bollards, the overhead doors, the exposed decking, whatever it is we're doing, the hollow metal doors, all the pieces that we see in the blueprint, we're calling it out on the estimate. So the GC knows they're going to do a scope check in the beginning. Hey, you are a little bit low on your price. Do you have everything included? Is what the GC is asking themselves. So you have to be thorough, slow, and methodical to go through the blueprints and not just skim it and say, okay, yeah, this is a six unit apartment complex building, whatever. It should be $62,000. You throw the number out, but be thorough in your estimate. Be thorough in the blueprint reading, call everything out in your scope, understand the schedule, communicate that to the GC, and then your price. They'll call you back and say, "Hey, do you have the staining that's called out in the lobby of this whatever?" And then you either answer honestly yes or no, and then you add it in if you don't have it. So you get that full scope from the very get-go. Yeah, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because you could lose your shirt if you miss a couple exterior stairwells or whatever, and
Right.
it'll sink the job pretty fast.
Yeah. 100%. We've been there many times,
Yeah.
residential and commercial for that matter.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Okay, last question for you, just around GC relationships, and working with GCs as far as money flow and financial management. Because I know a lot of jobs, a lot of projects are net 30, net 60. I even saw net 90 on a request the other day. Um, how do you? That's a big piece, I think, for small business owners. Is
Yeah.
how do
Yeah.
you manage a high accounts receivable amount, and how do you manage finances where you might need to pay your painters long before you actually get paid?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does start with estimating properly. So we got, you do that. Um, ideally, ideally, you'd have cash in the bank to float this.
Yeah,
Because you think about it, you're going to start a project the 1st of May. You're buying paint, you're buying labor. You're going to submit maybe once a month for a draw on the project. So you're not submitting that first draw maybe until June 25th. You're not going to see that check for another 30 days. So you're already close to 90 days into the project when you've paid for paint and labor.
yeah,
So there's two ways. You either have cash in the bank to cover this and not take on projects that are too big that you can't afford to float the cash. And then your second option would be to get a significant line of credit that would help get you through that time period while you're waiting on your money. There's other things you could do with regards to the vendors. So labor's got to be paid one way or another, regardless if you're using W-2 or subs. But as far as the paint vendors go, you can negotiate 90-day terms, 60-day terms is fairly common, and that's helpful. And again, it comes down to communication with your vendors, where you're at, because not too long ago I got real tight on cash. April, coming out of winter, I was tight on cash, so I just communicated, "Hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. This is my AR," and it was no problem to get through it. And in regards to the banking side, you're getting that line of credit. You could expect, if you're carrying an AR of, let's say, 200,000 fairly consistently, you could expect to fairly easily get a line of credit of about 60% of that. So $120,000 line of credit, which is helpful. Banks don't like to go much over that 60, 75% max of your AR as collateral to that line of credit.
So you can put up your AR as collateral.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what my line of credit is based on, is the AR.
Got it. Okay. I didn't know that, because we have a line of credit for our business, but it's not based off of AR. It's really just a line of credit on the business. I mean, the collateral is like my house,
Yeah.
So I did not know that. So you can show them evidence. Here's my accounts receivable amount. Based off this, what kind of loan can I receive from you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember, as far as the banking relationship, I want to hit on that, because you want to focus on a local credit union or a local regional bank. Stay away from the Wachovias, the Bank of Americas. They don't, you're just a number to them, but you're going to find the loan officer within that credit union, work with him and him alone, so he can understand your business. And I remember the first time when I bought the business, I got a small line of credit. I think I started out at like 60,000 line of credit just to get going. It reminded me of the book that Donald Trump wrote, The Art of the Deal.
Uh-huh.
And there was a deal that he was trying to put together. The bankers wanted to see some activity, and he had virtually nothing going on at this property. So he rented for a day all these workers with bulldozers and dump trucks to come in and start moving around the property. And he showed the bankers, "Hey, look at what we got going on. Give me the money I need to produce this building," or whatever it was. So when I called my banker out to the office, I told everybody, "We're moving our trucks up front. When the banker gets here, Chewy, I want you to grab the scissor lift and move it to the back." And we just started kind of creating this buzz of activity and excitement. And of course, you don't want to lie or be deceptive, but you want to show the banker that you know what you're doing, you got activity, and your books are accurate. And that was important. Is I always had accurate books. The banker could ask me for my AR report or my P&L, and it was accurate every day of the week. Something that most painters don't do.
Yeah.
Most contractors don't do. So you keep your books accurate. You're communicating to the banker. You're explaining to him the activity, the GCs you're working with, the projects you have going on, and you'll build confidence with that banker that you know what you're doing, and you'll make him a bunch of money, and you'll make money in the process.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, this is
The
great.
art of the deal.
The art of the deal. Yeah. That's you got a scissor lift moving around.
You got a scissor lift moving around for no reason.
Trucks up. Yeah. Just doing circles up and down. You just get the reverse in, so they hear the beep, beep, beep. Like that means work in progress. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was February. So it was like winter. We were cleaning the shop, and who knows what we were working on. But we showed the activity. So you want to communicate to your banker that you know what you're doing, you got your books in order, then you know how to go out and sell, and that'll build confidence, and he'll give you the money you need to get you through.
Nice. Love it.
And communicate. When you do become tight on money, just communicate ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, this is great. And I think, again, for anyone getting into new construction, or if you're in new construction and you feel like you're losing your shirt, or maybe you literally are losing your shirt, just to underline a few things. One, with GC relationships, like Brian said, they're looking for you to reduce the hassle and reduce their risk. I'm going to that's going to be like the tagline for this episode. In order to not, because I think when you do that, you don't have to price, like you said, price is still important, but it's not the number one thing anymore. So you can create more margin for yourself, which is obviously just a value equation for a GC.
Right.
They're going to get time and things done on time that saves them money. So they're going to pay you more money for that. Probably a fraction. They're going to pay you a fraction of the time of the money you save them because you save them so much time.
Right.
But for us, so it's a win-win, right? Pricing things well with your blueprint reading and your estimating and not missing anything on those, massive. And then finally, you said a lot with financial management. So thanks for going into that. But so the financial management, as far as you've got to pay your painters and your crews, but you can leverage with your paint vendors, with Sherwin, Benmore, Behr, whoever you're using, you can leverage that relationship. And then with a banker, have a good relationship with a banker, show them how busy you and your company are so they can give you more money. And don't lie, but it's, leveraging your accounts receivables, leveraging what you're up to so that they say, okay, I trust this person. I trust you as a business owner that you're running a good business and that you have things going on and you're going to, because for them, it's a value equation as well. I mean, they're trying to make money. You're going to get a loan that has an interest rate. That's where they make their money. So they want to loan you money. They just need to make sure they're going to loan you money that they're going to see back one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, that's it.
Brian, any last words for the listeners in this realm?
Yeah. Wherever you're at in your business, just stay focused, get really damn good at it. If you're residential, the next logical step would be that commercial repaint. Get really damn good at that. And then start playing into the GC world if you're interested. Honestly, you could stay out of it as far as, and do really well in residential. You could do really well in commercial repaint. But if you decide to go that route, at some point, you're going to want to go all in and cut ties to what got you to where you're at today. What got me here won't get me to where I want to go when I envision $100 million painting company that's regional. You have to make those cuts. And unfortunately, sometimes it's painful because it's profitable work that you're cutting to stay focused.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, that book 10X is easier than 2X. You and I talked about that the other day. So many examples of business owners letting go of good, letting go of the paycheck, letting go of what's working in order to get to great, and it's scary. And it's not like you have to. It's more about what's your intention with your business. Like, what are you actually looking to build? So maybe that's the tagline for this podcast, though, is stay focused. Focus on the one thing. Stay focused. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, thanks so much for being on, man. I really appreciate you and our friendship and partnership, and we'll have to do this again someday soon.
Absolutely, Ben. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Yep.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.